got career goals set. Maybe you want to get a promotion, maybe you want to pivot your career and try something new, or maybe move out of your existing employer's organization or team to somewhere else. It could be that you simply feel that last year you weren't really being heard, you're not visible. That could be in part because you've been working remotely, so you want to be more visible, you want to be known, you want people to be aware of what you're doing. And it might be simply you want to do something different, or you want to show up differently. So again, have a think about what it is for you. And something I've heard feedback on from some of my clients actually is about they're starting to realize more about how they're showing up and wanting to improve on that because they're now seeing themselves a lot. What do I mean? What I mean is we're all on camera. Okay, so you might be using Zoom, you might be using Teams in your organization. But what does that mean? It means that whereas before, perhaps you're in the office or you're on a phone, so you're not seeing yourself and you're showing up and you're engaging with people around you, you're not actually seeing back how you're coming across. But by having the power of the camera now, when you're on your Zooms and your team calls, you're actually getting to see it. And as an example, I had a client last year who reached out to me because she then started to see herself regularly on camera and she didn't like what she was seeing. And what I mean by that, it was about how she was showing up. And she wanted to do that. In fact, her words were she wanted to reinvent herself for when she was able to return to work. And that doesn't mean being somebody that you're becoming somebody that you're not. It's actually about looking at how you can show up as the best version of you. So that could just require some tweaks, some self-awareness, some shifts in the way that you do things or master things and improve some of the skills that you already have so that you can show up as the best version of yourself. So that's what I wanted to touch on today and just share some points and tips with you that you can take away and start working on today. So I just checked the comments. Derek, hello. It's been a long time. Great to see you here. Great watching. Sorry, let me just read this again. Really great watching and listening to you. Been a while since we last spoke and would be good to catch up sometimes. Very much so. Drop me a direct message, Derek, and we can arrange a catch up on Zoom. I look forward to it. So what can you do? What steps can you take to step up and to show up this year? To do something differently, to work towards the goals, the aspirations that you have in your career this year. So a few things for you to consider. Number one, ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned before, our perceptions create, our reputation creates those perceptions for other people. But the thing we need to remember here is that our perception of ourselves is not necessarily the perception that other people have of us. We may think that we show up in a certain way, that we come across in a certain way and create a particular kind of impression with other people. But it's more important to know what impression those people get from us and how they perceive us. So what can you do with that? Well, I would advise you to do this, and it can be uncomfortable, it can be a little scary, but what you can try is this. Reach out to, I'd say, between 3 and 5 people in your professional circle, people that you trust, people that you've worked with, and this can be in peers, managers, mentors, people that have reported to you, and ask them to share with you simply 3 words or phrases that would come to mind for them when they hear your name mentioned. And when you receive that feedback, take a look at it and ask yourself the question, am I happy with this? Is this the way that I want to be coming across? Now, typically you will see a theme flowing through the different responses. There will be a lot of similarities. But be honest with yourself and say, well, am I really happy with this? Is there something that I feel is very important in the way that I want to be seen, but nobody's actually picked that up? What you want to be doing in this exercise is identifying the gaps. What are those gaps and what can you do to close them? So what I mean by that is think about, for example, if someone says, you know, you come across as authentic, you're well spoken, you're engaging, but nobody's talked about let's say, your ability to communicate well. Maybe you think you're a really good presenter, but actually nobody's talked about that. But you believe you're an outstanding presenter when it comes to standing up at meetings or in broader presentations or pictures with clients, but nobody's noted that. And you're thinking, well, I know I'm really good at that, so what's going on? So this is where it helps you to identify the gaps of what's missing, or what can you do differently so that the next time you reach out to people and ask the same question, or you reach out to another group of people, they mention that, they recognize that. You want to be sure that the way that you want to come across is aligned with how other people are seeing you. So it might even be worth, before reaching out to people, to ask them to have a little brainstorm with yourself and jot down some of those things that you feel are important to you, that you want to be known for, and the things that you think already are things that people see in you. And maybe you've picked that up through conversations, maybe with your manager, with a mentor already. So you might already have a good idea. But the idea of this is to see if there's any potential gaps, or gaps that you can work on, or areas that you can develop and improve upon. And that's one of the first things I would think about. The second thing, and by the way, do pop in any questions on any of the things I'm sharing here today, and I'm happy to answer them. So number two, my advice would be to start to build greater self-awareness. And that's a big area to cover. So the one thing I'd ask you to focus on right now are your thoughts. What are the thoughts that you're having day to day, particularly when it comes to your job, your work, relating to other people, to your colleagues, to your managers? What thoughts go through your head throughout the day? Are they negative or are they positive? Are they serving you or are they holding you back? Because here's the thing, and this is huge, our thoughts become our reality. And as Henry Ford says, if you think you can or you think you can't, then you're right. In other words, whatever it is you think, you're right. Okay, so what does that mean? It means starting to really check in with yourself and do it on a regular basis, maybe every evening or at the end of the week. Reflect upon the day, the week, and have a think about how you handle situations and what thoughts were coming to your mind. And then ask yourself, well, are those thoughts serving me? Are they holding me back? Are they bringing me down? And a great question to ask yourself in this situation, in fact, is what I'm saying to myself, would I say that to a 5-year-old child? And be honest, because remember, when we're talking to children, we're always looking to encourage them, to bring them up, to encourage them to do more, to try more, and to grow. But we don't always do that with ourselves. We don't always value ourselves enough, and we don't realize this either, which means that we talk down to ourselves. We put ourselves down. We maybe tell ourselves that we're not good enough, we're not smart enough, we can't do that, they're better than us. All of that inner dialogue that's going on. So start to build that self-awareness by tuning into your thoughts and see what shows up for you. And what do you do with that? You can look to start refining that. You can start to check in with yourself and then be considered in your response when you're in a situation with other people. What can you do differently to start to reframe those thoughts that you're having? So guys, let me know, is this helpful? Is this useful for you? Have any of you tried this already? What results have you gotten? Do share in the comments and let me know if you have any questions. Okay, so number 3 is think about your presence. And right now I'm going to focus on presence on camera because that's what the majority of us are doing right now. We're showing up on camera to our clients, to our colleagues, to our managers. So what does that mean? What can we do that creates a greater connection when we're not face to face with people? The number one thing for me is to make eye contact. So what tends to happen? When we're on Zoom, when we're on Teams, we're looking at the screen. So we're looking at all the people, as I'm doing now. I'm looking at my screen at what potentially, if I was on a Zoom call, would be all the other people in the group. And that's normal because if you imagine if you're in a meeting room, that's what you'll be doing. You're looking around at the people who are sat with you. But in this case, we're on screen. Now, that's okay when you're listening to others. What I would advocate when you are speaking, whether that is one-to-one online or one-to-many in a meeting, in a presentation, is to look at the camera. Now, I'd recommend, first of all, that you practice this. And the way to do that is to just record yourself for a minute or so on your own, on Zoom, on Teams, and look at 3 different positions around your camera and count to 5. So for example, look firstly directly at your camera for 5 seconds, and then look about a centimetre or 2 below that for 5 seconds. And then do the same looking at the screen, as if you were looking at the people on the screen. Just record that and then play it back and look at your eye contact, look at where your focus is. And now imagine yourself as the person on the receiving end of you on camera, and how is that feeling? Which is the best position, eye contact, for you? And oftentimes it's, for me at least, it's looking just below my camera, which is what I'm doing right now, as opposed to looking at my screen, which is what I'm doing now. Do you notice the difference? And it's a whole different experience for the recipients when you're talking. So when we talk about presence and how you can start to build connection remotely, this is a great way to do that. Hi there, Maureen. How are you doing? Thank you very much for the tips. As I said, guys, let me know if this is helpful. And if you have any questions, pop them in the comments. And so try that out, record it, see what you see, and then determine, okay, where's the best place for you to be focusing on when you are speaking to the camera. And then going forward, when you're on Zoom or team calls and it's your turn to speak, look at the camera or look at that position just below the camera. It varies depending on the camera you have, whether it's the built-in one on your laptop, or you might have a separate one that you have just above. I've got a Logitech, which I've got sitting on the top of my laptop. And I actually have a little blob of blue tack stuck just below the camera, because actually that is where I get the best, I feel I get the best connection in terms of looking at my audience. So feed that back to me, let me know if that's working. But that's what I do. So play around with it and see what works best for you. And remember, that will make a not complete, but a huge difference to the engagement you have with people when you're on your calls. So that's number 3. Number 4 is about expanding your network. And you all have heard me talk about this a lot, whether it's on podcasts, whether it's in my posts. I'm always advocating that we look to grow our network. And I'll probably do one of the next shows in the next couple of weeks on this specifically. But one thing to think about here is your network. How can you grow and expand your network? Because remember, if your goals this year are to maybe move role, to get noticed, to create more visibility, to do something differently, this relates to all of those. And it's a great opportunity when we are working remotely to take advantage of the fact that it's a lot easier to network, to speak to more people, to engage more easily. Why? Because you don't have to travel. It's more effective use of time. So if you were meeting someone for a coffee face to face, you probably spend maybe half an hour with them. You need to travel to the destination and travel back to wherever you're going. Okay. Right now, that half an hour is half an hour, and that is it. It's hopping on that call with someone. Could do it first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, maybe at lunchtime, whatever works for both of you. Just hop on a call and catch up. And I've had people say to me, but there's so many people that I've worked with in the past and I've not spoken to them for so long. Hi, James, how are you doing? Thank you. Thanks for the feedback on that. Great to hear that. As I said, if any of you have any questions on this, let me know if this is useful for you, so that I can share even more of this similar content for you in the future shows. Well, I've lost my train of thought now. In terms of networking, yes. So I feel that right now is a great opportunity to build our network. And there are people that you may not have spoken to for a while, even a few years, people you worked with in a previous job, in a previous life. And you think, well, I'd like to reach out and reconnect with them, but I don't know how. And one of the things about networking and connection is all about building rapport. And one of the things we talk about when it comes to building rapport is finding something that we have in common. And for me right now, that is so easy because we are all in a similar situation. Yes, we're having different experiences in terms of the global pandemic and what that means for us and the changes in our day-to-day, the new challenges that have come up for us. So it's a great way to connect because it's something we all have in common. So if you're thinking, I'd like to reach out and chat to that person I worked with 5 years ago, do it. Just reach out, because right now people are craving connection. And it's not necessarily, yes, you might be having connection with your immediate colleagues, but it'd be great to have connection from people you've not spoken to for a while. And it's simply a case of reaching out, asking how they are. If they're receptive to that, suggest hopping on a call. And when you get on the call and you're thinking, I don't know what to say to them, the obvious question is, how have things been for you for the last year? How's the pandemic impacted you? And that you can take that either personally or professionally, depending on the dynamic of your relationship and how well you know them. But I really, really advocate that you do look at expanding your network, reconnecting with people that maybe you haven't spoken to for a while. Because my belief is that one conversation can change your life. One conversation can create so many opportunities. You just don't know. So never, ever assume. Go in there with an open mind and build those connections. Again, I'll ask you guys who are watching here, let me know, is this helpful? Have you done any of this already? Are you going to go and action some of these ideas? Okay, and number 5, finally, is this: communicate. And what I mean by communicate specifically today is about communicating what you do. Why? Because often people assume. We make a lot of assumption. So what happens is we assume that because we're working really, really hard, everyone knows about it. Everyone knows what we're doing. They know that great piece of work we completed, or that proposal we submitted, or that challenge that we managed to overcome, or some friction perhaps in the team that we've managed to address and resolve with those people. We assume that everybody knows, but guess what? Everyone, and particularly managers, are busy. We are all busy at work. We've got our own things that we need to focus on, whether it's managing our team, whether it's getting work done, whether it's attending meetings, and more so now, making sure we're staying in contact with everyone online, which means that we don't necessarily know exactly what you're doing. So when you get to, for example, your review, and many of you might have just had your annual review at the end of last year. And some people I know it might be coming up at the end of the fiscal year, so the end of March, beginning of April. Think back to the last one you had. And was your manager, as an example, aware of all the accomplishments, all the things that you've done, all the problems that you've dealt with and overcome to make your job and other people's jobs easier? Possibly no. So rather than keep all of that to that year-end review, you want to keep people abreast of what's going on, of what you're doing. And even more so when, cheer up, Zishan. Sorry, what's that? Am I being very serious? Sorry, I'm concentrating because I really want, this is so, so important. Great to see you here, Zishan. Thank you. And hello, Kamal. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. I'm glad that you're enjoying this. I hope it is useful for you. Brad, good insights on expanding your networks. What's the worst they can say? No, or maybe a few yeses. Absolutely. Always ask yourself, that's a great piece of advice there, Brad, is what is the worst that can happen? What is the worst someone can say? Is no, or they might just ignore you. That's okay. But also remember, it could be they've got their own things going on in life. You don't know what's going on for anyone at any point in time. So be mindful, particularly right now, that people have their own challenges. Working at home, they might be having to homeschool as well. There's a lot of other things, other dynamics right now. So don't take silence as a complete no. Leave it a few weeks and follow up again. Thanks, Brad, for that share. Hi, Charlotte. How are you doing? Thank you very, very much. Great to see you here. I'm glad that the tips are useful. Okay, so in terms of what I was saying, point 5, never assume. Be mindful that you want to have people knowing what you're doing, not a daily report, but maybe every week, every couple of weeks. And if you feel that actually, well, I hardly speak to my manager, so how am I ever going to tell him or her anything unless I get to my review at the end of 6 months or a year? Well, if you don't have a regular check-in, now would be a great opportunity to reach out and ask for it, even if it's only 15 minutes every couple of weeks. Why? Because we're working remotely. It's a greater excuse, let's call it, to reach out and ask for that. If they say they're very busy and they don't have the time, okay, that's another conversation. But in an ideal situation, a good manager will want to support his team or her team. Therefore, you want to ensure that you're having that regular check-in, that regular connection. It could even be a monthly. Make sure you have something in the diary. If you're not speaking to your manager regularly, so if, for example, I used to have regular engagement with my manager because of the job I was doing. So I didn't need to necessarily have a specific call in the diary, but depending on the dynamic of the relationship and how often you engage with them, if it isn't often, you want to look to have something booked into the diary. And like I said, it could be simply 15 minutes, okay? And then just have a catch up and talk about the things that you're working on, make them aware. Tell them about things that you like, challenges, problems that you're solving, what you've overcome. Talk about the great piece of work that you did. Obviously, so I did this great piece of work. You must see it. No, you don't need to say that. But actually what you can do is if you send a piece of work or if you're doing a project or a report or something that you have to send to somebody else and you get a good bit of feedback from them, share that with your manager. All I'm saying is to keep yourself top of mind to your manager in terms of what you're doing, your capabilities, because again, sometimes they don't always know all of your skills, your strengths, your capabilities. Consider if it's a case that maybe you have you've been in a role and you've had a change of manager. In other words, your manager didn't actually directly hire you. They may never have looked at your CV. They may never have had that conversation with you. So why should they know what your capabilities are? Okay. In other words, you need to be feeding that information constantly, regularly to people. And also, it's not only to your manager, but it's also to people around you, people that you work with, because you never know who can influence your future career. It could be a peer. It could be somebody in another team. It could be a manager in a different part of the business. So you want to make people aware. And how do you do that? It's simply by dropping things into conversation. And you can do it in a way where you're sharing a learning or an idea that you've got by virtue of something that you've done, like maybe a piece of work that you've done where you think actually this could be done more efficiently and this is how I've done it, and share it with other people. Or there was a problem that you helped address and deal with, and how did you share that? But share it from a context of you being helpful rather than bragging, because as you know, if you're bragging, that will typically put people's backs up. You don't want to be doing that. So if you share it in a more softer way by thinking about how can this help other people? I've done this great piece of work and I want people to know about it. Okay, you're not going to go tell them that. But what is it about that piece of work that could benefit other people? Maybe it's the way you put the report together, the way it was structured, got some really good feedback. So share that and make people aware, because what that does is that helps to also position you as an expert with your skills, with your capabilities, which means that people will become more aware of you. People may come to you for help and advice. That's positioning you. Now you're being seen as a leader. So there's a number of benefits to this. So my biggest piece of advice today is that it's about never assuming that people should know what you're about, what your skills and your capabilities are, what you're doing day to day, those problems that you're having to deal with, and the great pieces of work that you're producing and sharing. And even if you're in sales, think about the conversations you're having with clients and how you're overcoming objections, for example, and how did you do that? Remember, and all the other thing, actually, I can see Kamal, thank you for that. So very useful with your appraisal coming up. Great. So I'm assuming your appraisal possibly is a fiscal year end. I'm making a bit of an assumption there, but and I'm saying never assume. I'm talking specifically about the subject here of our abilities and making sure people are aware of that. The other thing I would advocate, so if you've just had your appraisal and you're thinking, well, this is no good because I've just had it, I've got to wait another year. These are things you want to be putting in place now. So you're having that regular engagement with your manager, with people who matter, people who are making decisions about your future career, about potential promotions, maybe a manager in a different team that you'd like to go work in. So think the bigger picture here. Who needs to know about what you're doing and why? Okay, those are the couple of questions to ask yourself. The other thing I was going to say there is to start making a list. And I'll admit, I wasn't great at this. I would sit there a week or two before my appraisal, trying to rack my brain of what I'd actually done for the last year, and then going through all of my to-do lists and my calendar, and it would take a long time, and it was harder work because I was now trying to remember the last 12 months. So what I would do is keep a document on your laptop or in your notes somewhere, probably electronically, so it's easier to come, and just keep popping things on there as you're going along. Hi, Carl. Lovely to see you here. How have you been? All makes sense to me. Great to see you on such a. Thank you very, very much. And it would be lovely to catch up with you and hear how you're doing. So thank you for joining today. Who else have we got? Maureen. Talking about your achievements is so important. It is. And one of the things that is really important about this is the fact that oftentimes people tend to focus on what went wrong in the workplace. And if you've made a mistake or something didn't go to plan, or you lost a opportunity with a potential client, those are the things that people tend to remember. So you have to take that responsibility for reminding people of all the goodness that you're bringing to your job, all the value that you're bringing. So what I was saying also is to remember to maintain a list. Keep it somewhere really simple, like on your desktop. So you can just go in there maybe once a week, once every couple of weeks, and just pop in there any of the things you've done. It's almost like you've got a to-do list. And when you do something from that to-do list, it's really worth keeping a record of, that you want to bring to the attention of your manager at some point or in your review. Put that on the list, because at least then when it comes to your review, you're not like how I used to be sitting there racking your brain trying to remember, what was it I've done this year? Have I actually done anything useful? And you may even have to go speak to people for them to remind you of all the good stuff you've done. So start to take that responsibility and this is so much more important right now because we're working remotely. Remember, when you were in the office, it was very easy for people to see you, so that you're in their mind because they're seeing you. Whereas right now, unless you're on calls with people, then they're not seeing you on a regular basis. So book in those calls with your manager in the context of what you feel is comfortable, whether it's once a week, once a fortnight, once a month, where you can just check in. And if they're really busy, just say, look, I just want 15 minutes to just check in with you, make sure this all makes sense, what I'm doing, just run a few things past you. And then use that time as an opportunity to share things from that list that you're collating. So those are my tips today in terms of what you can do to step up and to keep moving forwards towards your career goals, whatever they may be. So let me ask, has anyone got any questions? Has that been useful? Any comments, any thoughts? Tell me if you've been doing this already and has it been working? Has it been helpful for you? And if you're watching on Facebook, then please do click on the StreamYard link so that Facebook will recognize you when you pop a comment in. Otherwise, you'll come up as a Facebook user. Okay, so I'm not seeing any more comments coming in. I'll give it another few seconds because I know there is a little bit of a time delay. And where are you guys all based? So some of you I know, Kamal, you're up the road from me and working at home, I'm sure. So I hope that's going well today. Let me know if you built a snowman over the weekend. And Zishan, how are you doing? I think we need to have a catch up, don't we? We need to have a coaching session, if I'm not mistaken. So do reach out and let me know. We can aim to book that in very, very soon. Kamal, trying to do this, but finding it hard to be confident within these difficult times. Okay, when you say confident, Kamal, what do you mean by that? What is it that's impacting your confidence? Just drop me a comment there. Just let me know specifically what you mean when you talk about finding it hard to be confident. Bianca, long time no see. How are you doing? This has been really useful. I think building personal brand also helps with showing value, which links with productivity. Definitely, definitely. This is what this is all about today. It's about not assuming that people know your value in the workplace. Really, really important. And so much more so now when we're remote, because we're not in people's faces. They're less likely to know. You don't have that banter when you're sat amongst people. So you want to actively look to be talking to the right people about what you're doing, making yourself known, because this will keep you visible. And when it comes to making decisions, whether it's about the promotion, whether it's who we're going to share that bonus pot with, you want to be top of mind. You want to be recognized for the value that you're bringing and that work that you are doing. Thank you, Bianca, and great to see you. And again, Bianca, it would be lovely to catch up with you at some point, because I know it's been a long, long time since we've spoken. Brad, very helpful, especially sharing regular with line management on what you do. And I'm guessing, Brad, you can see this from the other side, because I know you've run very large teams as well, in terms of trying to remember what everyone's doing, and keeping an eye on things and just knowing who's doing what well. So let me know your thoughts with that as also. That would be useful. Make end of year appraisals easier. Yeah, makes end of year appraisals easier as you had regular dialogues during the year and not just at year. Absolutely, absolutely. Because otherwise you kind of land everything on their desk during the appraisal, and it might be already too late when it comes to that bonus pot or the pay rise. And also, you know, if there's a new project, there's a new role, opportunity, you want people to be aware of that. Sorry, not aware of. You want people to think when they start to thinking about who's the right person for that. You want to have you in their mind. So by keeping that regular dialogue with people who are the decision makers, that can also make a difference to the progression of your career. So think outside the box of why this is so important. Come on, showing enthusiasm amongst all the negative news and feeling down sometimes. Okay, so enthusiasm in terms of your work, stay focused on you. I know it's really hard because right now we're seeing a lot of things on the news. I actually avoid watching the news. I keep an eye, I literally go online and just check the headlines just to have a feel of what's going on, but I don't watch it in detail. I don't get it because it is very negative energy, and that energy can directly affect us and bring us down. So you want to focus on you, stay in your lane, think about your goals, where you're heading and what you want to accomplish. And when it comes to then confidence for you in the workplace, you're only focused on yourself and showing up as your best self, as I always say. So what can you do to stay active in other people's minds and to ensure that people are aware of the value that you're bringing to, whether it's your team or the projects or the wider organization? So that's awesome. James says, Carol, stop watching and listening to the news. Absolutely. It's good to just have an idea of what's going on, but you really don't need to sit and watch it and listen to it in depth. Just keep an eye on the headlines and the lockdown rules, and you're good. Move on, and focus on you know, what plans you set yourself for the year. What are your goals? And keep focused on that, because by allowing the news to impact your emotional state, let's say, and your confidence, your what's the word I'm looking for? Your oh, it's gone up my head. But basically, you're letting something else dictate your outcomes, your experiences. So you're not taking control, let's say, of your own outcomes. You can do that by focusing on the thoughts. We talked the second point. Let me just recap these. Come on, definitely take that advice. Very, very good. So let me recap on the steps that you can take to really step up this year and make a difference in your life and in your career. So number one, look up, give some thoughts rather to what you want to be known for, and reach out to others, get some feedback in, and have a look and see if there's any gaps there. Number two is be aware of your thoughts, and that your thoughts create your reality. So a great example you brought there was about how you're feeling, the negative news is impacting your enthusiasm, your confidence. So we don't want that to happen. So our thoughts are around what's going on in the world and the news. Stay on track, be aware of the thoughts that you're having, focus them on the positive things of why you do, what you want to be happening, what your outcomes are, what you enjoy, and that will bring back the enthusiasm and also the confidence, because you're good at what you do and you bring value to what you do. So be aware of your thoughts, because that creates your reality. Number three is to develop your presence. And one of the tips I'm sharing today on that is to make eye contact when you're on camera. Also, the other thing around that I didn't mention is to ensure that your camera is at eye level. What a lot of people tend to do is they have their camera on the desk and you're then looking down at your camera. Now, the feeling that, remember I talked about the feelings that other people have. So the feelings that creates for your audience isn't great. It's like you're looking down and literally talking down to people. So what you want to be doing is set your laptop so your camera is at eye level. So you're looking straight ahead, similar to how you would be in person. And when it's your turn to speak, look at the camera or just look just below it. And remember to test that out and see what works for you, depending on the camera and the laptop that you're using. The fourth point I shared was about expanding your network. You will always hear me talking about this. Utilize this time, leverage the opportunity to do it online, because it's so much easier. It's more time effective. You can hop on a call, even if it's for 15, 20 minutes, reach out and reconnect with people you've not spoken to for a while, and connect with people that maybe you haven't spoken to before. Find a reason to do it. And finally, number five is to communicate and never assume. In this context today, I'm talking about communicating the value that you bring to your role, to your team, to the workplace, to your manager. Don't assume they know, and more so know. So actively take steps to ensure that the right people know what you're doing, what you're getting up to, what accomplishments, what achievements, and the great work that you're doing. James, what are you saying? News these days is commercialized and push agendas, so you never and rarely hear good news. This is so true. Yet there's a lot of good news out there. So focus on that. Go looking for the good stuff. And look for some good news website. Exactly. And James, if you've got any suggestions on that, please do share them here. Maureen, absolutely. What you focus on expands. Thank you. Again, so pertinent, because that's about your thoughts. Your thoughts create your reality. What you focus on becomes your reality. So be mindful. Start to build habits of self-awareness where you check in with yourself, either at the end of the day, just before you go to bed, or at the end of the week, of the kind of experiences you've had and where your thoughts were at that time. Were you thinking, so come on, we talk about confidence. Was it a feeling of not being good enough and not being smart enough, or others are better than me? Why? Then go into the rationale of that. Why are you even thinking that? And how true is that? So these are things you can do to start becoming aware and to create a shift in our experiences of what's good for us and what's not. Okay, so mindful of time. I get on this and I keep thinking, will I be able to keep chatting for 20 minutes? And it gets to 45. So that's a good thing. And that's thanks to all of you for your engagement today and for your questions. I really appreciate it. I hope this has been helpful for you. Please do take those steps, take that action. Let me know how you're getting on. If you do have any questions, particularly if you're on the replay and you want some advice, further advice on what I've said, drop them in the comments or direct message me and I will get back to you. So until next time. Oh, we've got another comment here. Okay, great. So James, thank you for that. goodnewsnetwork.org. That's the good news. So come on, check it out. And I will come back to you and see how you're getting on with that. Positive news. There you go. There's another one.
Come on, we'll concentrate on India being the #1 cricket team and how the Windies are struggling. Yes, I heard this morning. So yeah, no comment on that one. Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for the engagement. As I said, I do hope you've gotten value from this today. I'm here every Tuesday at 12 o'clock live. So come along, ask me any questions about personal branding. Until next time, continue to build your influence, to make an impact and leave a compelling, lasting impression, and continue to show up as your best self. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care of yourself, and I will see you very, very soon.